Hornets.
The NHL had 6 teams at the time, so there was a premium on positions. You had to be really good to crack the NHL lineup. And you know, the guys who weren't quite good enough were excellent hockey players, and they were playing here for the Hornets.
The squad was so popular, it even drew the interest of Steelers owner Art Rooney. But the Chief decided not to get into the business of another sport at the time. The Hornets would win 3 Calder Cup championships, and while the team vanished for 5 seasons after the Gardens closed in 1956, they resurfaced with the opening of the Civic Arena in 1961. The National Hockey League then decided it would return to Pittsburgh in 1967 with the expansion Penguins. Knowing that things would soon end for good, the Hornets went out in style by winning the Calder Cup in the same fashion.
19 seconds into overtime, Pittsburgh's Billy Harris scored a goal. Overtime, Calder Cup clinching goal. The very last goal in Hornets history. It was a walk-off winner in many respects. It was the last for that season, for the playoffs, for the franchise.
Give me back that filet-o-fish. Give me that fish. Give me back that filet-o-fish. Give me that fish. What if it were you hanging up on this wall? If it were you in that sandwich, you wouldn't be laughing at all.
Right now, a second filet of fish is just 69 cents when you buy a filet of fish extra value meal at McDonald's. A second sandwich, just 69 cents.
The Penguins were part of the NHL's Next 6, and the new kids on the block were not exactly welcomed with open arms.
There were a lot of great fans for the Hornets, and even at the old Duquesne Gardens way back, a lot of the diehard Hornet fans, and I think they were a little disappointed that the Hornets were going to be leaving and the Penguins were coming in, so that was a kind of an obstacle that the Penguins had to overcome.
Well, it was pretty tough, really. The people never took to the Penguins right away because the Hornets had just won the championship the year before. And many of the American League players were drafted by various teams in the league, including ourselves. And it was a little tough at first.
It's kind of an unknown, you know, coming from New York and, you know, the glitter of Broadway and so forth, and coming into Pittsburgh, I think everybody had the connotation like Pittsburgh, you know, Steel City, so it was completely unknown.
The team struggled to find its own identity. The tragic death of Michel Briere may have kept the squad from having its first true superstar, but there still was an interest in the men behind the uniform.
On KDKA, there was a guy named Mike Levine who had an evening show, and once in a while he'd have a hockey player on. One night Brian Watson, Bugsy Watson, was on, and the phones just lit up because these were just good souls that were playing hockey in Pittsburgh. They weren't on their way to any kind of championship because the real power was in the other division of the 6 established teams. And so, you know, they were going to play within their own division and see how far they could get.
As the Penguins started to draw attention, the sport itself was doing the same with kids. High school hockey organized the Western Pennsylvania Interscholastic Hockey League in 1971 with 6 teams, though finding ice was a challenge.
I was one of the first high school hockey players in Pittsburgh. I did a pretty bad impersonation of a goaltender back in those days.
And North Park had their guys and South Park had their guys, and I was from the city, so we had our rink in the east at by Swissville Edgewood there, the old Alpine Arena. So everyone knew everybody pretty much back then, and you know, we had our own little group of people that played hockey.
More teams would lead to a second league in the South Hills, making locations like the Monroeville Mall Ice Palace and others busy for youth hockey players and interesting for the Penguins, who practice there without glass above the boards.
Dwayne Rupp comes out on the ice, you know, before practice and fires the puck as hard as he can into the netting. It came off the netting and almost killed him. It just missed his head by like 6 inches, so it was a weird place for the NHL team to practice.
My first year I had a practice on the Ross Draper Arena, and we used to go out there and, you know, you go into the showers where there's no hot water. You guys used to just get dressed and go home and shower. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that professionalism that you see that every NHL team has nowadays.
The accommodations in Monroeville may not have been suitable for NHL teams, but it did not stop young players from turning into prospects over time. That list included D. Rizzo, a small, scrappy player from Alderdice High School who caught the eye of Michigan State University, where he won it all in 1986.
Riz was the guy who knew how to play better than anybody. I mean, he was a small guy. If he had been big, there's no doubt in my mind he would have played in the NHL and done well. He just was a pass-first type of guy who elevated his teammates.
It meant so much to me, you know, to be the first player from Western Pennsylvania to win a national championship is something that I will always have, and that meant so much to me. But as I was at that age, I remember seeing the young guys coming, so you knew it was coming.
Monroeville's days were numbered in 1984 when the Ice Palace was closed. That sparked an effort by members of the community to build a facility of their own. The result was the Golden Mile Ice Center, which was not state-of-the-art, but it was close enough.
When Craig Patrick coached the team and was the GM, the Penguins would come in, skate in the morning, do a complete workout. Mario would skate there, Paul Coffey would skate there. I mean, it was the greatest thing ever, an accomplishment saying, hey, this rink was built by a bunch of volunteers and now you've got an NHL team skating here.
By that time, the Penguins had established themselves as a dominant force in the National Hockey League, which was a far cry from how things started for the franchise. During their first 15 seasons, the Pens produced a winning record only 4 times. That, combined with the dominance of the Steelers and Pirates in the 70s, made it difficult to put fans in the seats. By the early 80s, their future looked bleak.
There was no pulse of hockey in Pittsburgh at that time. Back in those days, if you got double-digit crowds on Saturday night, 10,000, that was huge. Weeknights, 5,000 or 6,000. People were still in Super Bowl, post-Super Bowl mode.
The year before Mario got here, there was legitimate talk about the team moving to Hamilton because it couldn't make it. And actually, the Bartolows keeping their soccer team and letting the hockey team go.
You knew when you got here that the game had to be sold. I mean, we did a lot of stuff at local you know, outlets and grocery stores and things like that. We were trying to build the game of hockey. You know, it wasn't big, but the people that were fans were die-hard hockey fans. But we needed to build the fan base, and I felt you know, pressure being a #1 pick, not only to perform on the ice, but to do some stuff off the ice as well.
Spotlight Pittsburgh is Hockeytahn is presented by McDonald's new McCafe coffees, mochas, lattes, and cappuccinos brewed from fresh ground espresso beans. McDonald's McCafe. I'm loving it.